Welcome back to another edition of the podcast. And tonight I am pleased to be joined by Paul Franklin as usual. And in the middle of us both, for the third time, we've got Dorking Wanderers owner, manager, whatever, with us, Marc White. Marc, firstly, how are you doing tonight?
Yes, very good, mate. Thanks for asking us back on. Was it Soccer AM where you got a hat-trick ball?
Yeah, something like that, to be honest. But no, we're just saying we can't think of many managers out there where you could get a part 3 involved in like a podcast with still so much to talk about. At this rate, we'll be on to part 4, part 5 in the next couple of years. Anyway,
Hopefully.
Marc, yeah, hopefully. And hopefully you'll be back in the National League by then as well.
Exactly, mate.
Brilliant. Right, so basically, guys, for those who are watching, please remember to like and subscribe and check out our sponsors. A link in the description. You can get 50% off your card machine if you do use them. Get your questions in the live chat for Marc. Marc will literally answer, within reason, anything. So, yeah, just get your questions in there. But to start things off then, Marc, we might as well get straight into it with Dorking. Of course, relegated from the National League last season. How are you going to react to that going into the National League South this season?
Well, do you know what? It's weird actually, because as the dust settles, you sort of look at that relegation, and one of the worst things about that relegation battle in hindsight was how close it was. Because I think if you was like filed early doors, detached, you probably done some remedial action. You probably thought, right, here we go. Get it all sorted, take a few players out, don't take any risk on injuries but because it was always so close and we had so many boys that were injured, returning and stuff like that, my thing always was, look, just to sort of stay in this division, 3-4 wins, own a hat on, to be honest. Caught a cold because we didn't quite get players back on the pitch, suffered all season. I think they missed 240 games between them, the players. But that's all down to me, really, because the warning signs were there. We could and should have gone on the loan market. We didn't. And then, we suffered a first and only relegation, hopefully, we ever have.
I think it's part of the story, isn't it, though? To have that. It's the first one that you've had. And I think, like you've mentioned there, you're hoping it'll probably be the last one that you'll have. But is that expectation still there for the future? Like your intentions still there, for example, on like improving the ground, maybe even getting into the Football League one day? Is that kind of a stumbling block, or?
Yeah, no. Listen, we're hoping it's just part of the story, and I mean, it's the one thing the story didn't have, the sort of comeback, if you like. Look, we were, like I said, when there was sort of like 4 or 5 points between 10 or 11 teams for what seemed like months. And then in the middle of that, we went and beat Chesterfield 4-1, played really well, nothing innocuous about it, and just never saw us getting sucked in like that. And it was a big lesson, but the sort of desires burning more than ever. And the fans have been amazing, supporters have been incredible, not just those sort of wider folk that follow the club, which we really appreciate, and all our local supporters have been incredible, really. Everyone's been a little bit like hurt by it, so to speak. So we just look forward to the comeback, and we are going to try and come back.
Yeah.
Marc, interesting what you say there about if you were sort of a filed and were a little bit detached and you make remedial work. Was there? I mean, I follow Wealdstone, so obviously we were in a very similar position to you guys and got sort of sucked in a different way. Obviously, we lost Stewie Maynard up to knots and had to be replaced. So, our board made a very brave decision to replace David Noble in a very short space of time because it didn't work out. Was there any thinking in your head as an owner to say, do I need to change, even if it's in the short term, to help the team get out of it? Or was it because you were so close, you sort of felt you were doing all right and it would come good?
The thing is, it was all, I mean, well, honestly, it sounds a little bit, whatever the word might be. Honestly, I believe in football that when teams are going to win the league or get promoted, you see common themes. And when things are going against you, you know, when you see them teams getting winning goals in the 85th minute every week, you think, here we go, they're having a good season. When they've got a left winger scoring 30 goals, you think, oh, tight, what's going on here, right? You know, from our point of view, we had the amount of things that went against us were unbelievable. We had a ball a foot over the line at Oldham, denied us 3 points. We lost about 7 points to decisions you never ever get back. These weren't negatibles. These were ridiculous things, and injuries at just every turn. It was unbelievable. I mean, our main striker ACL, 2 ACLs in 12 months. You know, so we had the squad, and we had the squad. What I didn't do, what is my fault firmly, was that I thought, due to the close proximity of the competition, with the squad we had, we'd pick up 3-4 wins, because that's all you needed, wasn't it? As you saw, you boys, but we didn't get them, and so that ultimately comes down to me. But no, I didn't think for 1 minute about, because I knew that I was having a lot of challenges, if that makes sense. But what I should have done was just get players in when it was clear that we didn't have enough bodies.
I think how I saw it with Dorking, and you've mentioned there, I think we were talking about it, weren't we, Paul, on the podcast at the back end of last season. It was like, we just can't seem to get any momentum there. Like, you get a win, for example, you beat Chesterfield. I think everyone thought then that's going to be it now. They're going to go on a bit of a mini run and be able to pull away from the drop zone. But you seem to just struggle to get any momentum last season.
Yeah, honestly. I learned an awful lot. I'll say that. Yeah. I'm not big enough to admit that. I learned an awful lot, and it's there's no question that my biggest sort of crime, even though there was a lot of uncontrollables to a degree that went against us, was probably having an owner hat on in a management situation. Because if I was Stuart or Cookie or someone, all I'd be doing would be thinking about, we need more players, we need to win matches. In my head, I'm thinking survival was always the goal, consolidation. I know we've got the people on board here. By the way, because we had so many injuries upon injuries, we had like 30 players on the books. So the money was like gone. So yeah, honestly, if it could have gone wrong, it did. And there was a few bad decisions in there. But as proved with Wealdstone, who I must admit, I thought Wealdstone were absolutely gone. Even when you had 3 games in hand, Paul, I was thinking, this is a team getting relegated because they can't get a point. They couldn't get 1 point at one point, could you? So, you know, fair play, because that decision did turn it round for them. And actually, in the bottom 6, at one point, I was the only manager that was still there. Everybody had been given the boot. Dennis at Ebbsfleet, all of them. So, yeah, it's but I've learned a lot. Not least, you can't take things to chance. Maybe our success over the years of always coming up, smelling of roses, probably made me feel like we'd succeed.
I mean, another thing I know, I've listened to many of the podcasts you've been on, Mark, over the last year or so, and one of the common themes you talk about through the rise of the leagues is your ability to keep the nucleus of the team, and the onus on doing that. Now, has that made you change after this year and getting hurt by the relegation and trusting a lot of those lads to come from South and the league, National League side, albeit injuries aside? Are you going to adopt the same sort of attitude, or have you gone into it this season gone, actually, I need to clear the decks a bit more and get more freshness in terms of...
I'll tell you what, Paul. I'll tell you what, mate. Yeah, so I'm pretty clear on this stuff. So ironically, our biggest continuity was our first season in it. So that first season in it, we trained like you did, Tuesday, Thursday nights, barely changed a player, and actually had a half decent season, 16th. I think it was only about 10 points off the playoffs, right? In our first season, part-time, with most of the squad. It was only when I went and changed it a bit too much. And then what I'd done was, not only that, I brought in the wrong age group. because every division we'd ever played in, including the Conference South, you would get away with them boys that maybe might be in the departure lounge, right? Okay. But the minute we went into the National League, you know, I started to realise, I remember we played Wrexham. I can't think of the right centre half in the back three for Wrexham, what his name was.
Maybe Hayden, something like that.
Yeah, I can't. No, not the opposite side. Right. Anyway, I want to shake his hand at the end. He looked about 14, right? And then I started to fathom that Halifax, great example. You know, all these young pros, and the National League is 1.5 divisions above the National South. There ain't no question about that at all. And because of that, the dynamic of the type of player, I think, is different. So what we try to do now, close season, was address that, lower the age group of the players, look at a different type. Because I think that was one of the contributing factors to the injuries, was we was carrying too many players of that age.
I think just one final one then before we do come on to more of like the National League South and the plans for this season. I don't know if you remember, Mark, but last season we did some like predictions at the start of the season, and at the end you were the only manager, to be fair, to actually come on. And it may look bad, but no one's predictions ever look good. And if you actually look at it overall compared to others, it's a pretty good set of predictions, even though it may not look too good. So I'll just take the lower thing, the sponsor, off the screen. You can probably see some of the predictions there, but these were your
beautiful.
In it, they're not even. I don't think they're bad. Them, so of course
I'll tell you, they're good. Look at that, Bromley, Chesterfield. Is that as a Bournemouth absolute flunk, Dorking Wanderers flunk, blimey, Woking flunk, yeah. But there's there's some left field ones in there that came off. Not bad.
In it, I know. For example, York, although you put them to go down, they were very close. To be fair, on another season they could have gone down. So
relegation battle was just insane, wasn't it? I mean, Paul was in it. Do you know what I mean? It was insane. The problem is you get sucked in mentally half the time. Anyone who says you don't is lying. Do you know what I mean? You know me. I just say how it is. Like, you know, in reality, there's 3 points between God knows how many teams with 20 games or 15 games to go. There's probably nothing to even think about, but you do. But yeah, interesting.
It was, and I mean, that relegation battle was, everyone was beating everybody. You know, you like you said, you go and beat Chesterfield, and I know, you know, Willstone beat Oldham at the end of the season, but they go and pick up a point there, but then they lose to Boreham Wood, and there was no consistency in that bottom six. Maybe apart from Oxford, even they picked up a few sort of impressive results along the way, and you're thinking, Christ, you know, throw us a bone here. We need a bit of relief. And I know for a fact, you know, Wealdstone fans were desperately not wanting to go down for the same reasons as Dorking, you know, for that future investment and that continuity and building the club going forward rather than having to repair it if they drop. So, you know, I never felt Wealdstone would go down. I genuinely didn't think Dorking would either. And it was just bonkers every week. Luke and I would talk about it, and we couldn't predict who was going to do what at any one time.
No,
one week,
madness.
I know 1 week we'd think, oh, nah, Dorking, they're gone. Then they go and beat Chesterfield. We're like, nah, they're too good to go down. Then we'd be talking about Wealdstone getting sucked into it. It just changed every single week. And I have to say, as a Halifax fan, to not be involved in it, it was quite enjoyable looking down and it was. But I have to be honest, for you guys, I'm sure it must have been a little bit nervy at times for you, Paul. I know you mentioned that. And it was certainly a very good relegation battle, but it always seems to be in the National League. And I think this season, I know, Mark, you're in the South now, but it's another season where it's very, very open. I know last season they were probably Chesterfield who were favourites to win the league, but apart from that, it felt like anyone could finish anywhere. Where this season there's no outright, you know, winner, predictable favourite. Is that something you'd agree with, Mark? You know, when you're looking on the National League,
there's a bit of a trick to teams that win leagues, and it's quite an obvious one. But nobody wins leagues unless they've got goals in the side. So if ever you're looking for a team to win a league, you just need to think who's got the most firepower. In general, if you look at any division, obviously you get the odd anomaly, but in general, Chesterfield last year, Cookie won't mind me saying, I'm pretty sure that he wouldn't have rated his defence to be an elite defence, right? But they had the most goals in the league by a mile, all across the front four and the two blokes that have come off the bench as well, right? So when you're looking for someone to win this league this year, you're looking for sort of, prowess in the last third, really. You can't win leagues without scoring goals. It sounds basic, right? You can win leagues by conceding goals, right? That's the bottom line, right? But you have to score goals. Yeah. You can't win a league by keeping clean sheets. You have to score goals. And you have to, we've done it for years, right? At all levels. I think the year we got promoted National South, only Fulham scored more goals than us in the whole of British football. And, you have to, and we're always like that. We've always got goals in the side when they're fit, that is. So I'm not sure, like, you look at it on paper and you're thinking, well, Southend with Kev, if they make signings, now they've sorted stuff out, probably will do well. I couldn't be sure about the likes of the relegated sides at all. I don't know if anyone's got any info there. You look at Oldham, Mickey Mellon's got a good track record of success. So I think it's wide open. And I think arguably last year was wide open outside of Chesterfield.
Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, this season, I think those that have come down, there's not a basket case amongst them, is there, Mark? We've always had the Scunthorpes and the likes of those that just got no money. They're in disarray. They don't know who the owner is. So I think those three coming down have come down. And they might not do so well on the field, but they're okay off the field. And I think that's going to be a challenge for the teams to compete against them, because they're not in any financial situations that other teams have been in the past. And Southend can get their shit together on this whole season. Luke and I be a real force to be reckoned with. If they pick up someone like Shamanga for Peterborough, then there's goals guaranteed straight away.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to mention. Just there on, I think we're going to speak a bit about Woking, but Southend for you, Mark. Of course, you're someone who, of course, owns a football club. You understand that side of the game as well, of on the field. You'll be well aware of what's been happening at Southend. Just what's your personal thoughts, on the takeover of Southend and how beneficial that'll be for the fans?
I just think it's amazing. Yeah, I think it's amazing, all of it. I think, obviously, maybe it's easier for me as an owner, but if you run a football club from Chelsea to in the North West Counties League, somebody somewhere is funding it. That is just football, right? They don't make a profit. There is somebody somewhere putting money in, okay? And ultimately, the clubs are the legacy for the fans. They're the hub of the community. But having a football club that is actually there is undeniably better than a football club that wins. That is just the fact of the matter. You've got the club has to be paramount, as we're seeing with Woking at the moment. I mean, and I looked at actually Halifax, ironically, and we went up to your place 1-1-0, right?
Oh,
I think we was having a great run at the time. We started the season really well, and you guys had just won at Wembley, right?
Yeah.
Halifax had just won at Wembley. Okay. They was in the playoffs when we played them, Paul. You like this one, right? Yeah. Right. We're 1-0 up and the crowd booed them off. And I remember thinking, fuck you lot. If I was that owner of that club, I would say, do me a favour, fuck off. I'd rather play in front of one man and his £8 than have people that don't understand how hard people work behind the scenes. Millington working with no budget, the ground being owned by the council, that's a shit tip, and they don't get a lot of revenue. And they're booing off the players and the manager. And so what I'm saying is, sorry, Luke, I know it's your club, but this is just...
I agree, though, to be honest.
I was there. Like we walked. I couldn't believe it. Anyway,
I mean, I agree with you. Not agree with booing, by the way.
Yeah. Like the point is, like, when push comes to shove, clubs are a real saviour for communities, individuals, and football being played is key. So I love it. I never like seeing any other club's woes, and I think any true football fan doesn't either.
Yeah, I'd agree with that totally. And, you know, for me, I think at any club, it's not just Halifax to a certain extent. I know there's other clubs out there when, you know, sides will be in the playoffs and they'll boo the players off because they've had one bad result. Because I think on paper, and this is no disrespect to you guys, but when you're at home, you're expected to win those sort of games. But to be fair, we were in the playoffs, like you've mentioned. We just won at Wembley. The crowd are quite poor over all the attendance and everything because the fans didn't seem to get behind the team. And I think to boo them off like that, it's just unacceptable. And, you know, those fans there look foolish now, you know, considering we finished inside of
you
the
know
playoffs.
what, mate? You know, the quickest route to being successful again for these clubs that hang on to the legacy. And when we played Hartlepool, we had a similar thing. Like, the quickest route is to embrace where you are. Because in my interview at the end of the Hartlepool game, because some bloke was shouting out the whole game, who the fuck are you lot? You're this, you're that, you're that. And at the end of the interview, I said, well, for that bloke that kept saying that, we're Dorking Wanderers and we're in the same fucking league as you, right? So you wanna understand where you are, because your job is just to get behind the team. Do you know, when we played Hartlepool, I love giving you real talk, one of my players had to console their fullback who was nearly crying because of the abuses getting from his own fans. Honestly, it was unbelievable. And I thought, Jesus, it's like an entitlement that we were a Football League club. So what we're going to do now is batter anyone in sight until we're back in the Football League. Don't work that way, because you'll be in that league 15 years like Wrexham if that's the way you look at it.
Yeah. I think just what I'd say just there, you know, coming back to Halifax as well and on the things of ownership as well is probably, yes, there's things about Halifax that fans will disagree with. You might say they're a little old-fashioned behind the scenes with certain things they do. Of course, we don't have one of the biggest budgets, but I think overall, considering the budget, we're quite a successful side, considering we've reformed, we're back where we started, and we're looking to get back into the Football League now.
Listen, we had more money than Halifax. We had more money than Gateshead. We had more money than Wealdstone. You know, the bottom line is that them managers, Millington, Williamson initially, what Stewart had done at Wealdstone, them boys, you know, had a great model to recruit, knew what it took in the division, and you know, you've got to tip your hat to it. I think the National League is a tad bit unique. You need to know what you need to know in that league.
I'd also say that just on Halifax is we're sustainable, if that makes sense, where you're looking at Woking now, and you'll probably know both of you probably know more than me about it, with you both being from kind of around there within reason. You know, you look at them and they're a side that everyone's kind of admired for the way that they've moved in the last couple of years, where they've got into the National League. They've seemed to have that ambition of getting into the Football League and splashing the cash. And then the other day, the Woking owners come out and said, oh, I've spent too much thinking we're going to get up, and we've kind of gone backwards, and now we're in a bit of a financial crisis. What's your thoughts on that, Mark, and the whole situation there?
I think when new owners come into clubs, I actually think they often have no idea what they're walking into. And I do think it's a responsibility of the football authorities. When they talk about the sort of fit and proper test in the EFL, but I do think for the acceptance of new owners, there has to be some kind of like either, you know, training course or realization of what's involved, or just a deposit being put down or a bond, old school bond, whereby there's a bit of protection for the club. Because I do believe people buy a club with all good intentions, and until they get the club, they have no idea. And, you know, the Woking interview was amazing because he couldn't have been more honest if he tried. He said, I put in all this money, 3.5 million. I've borrowed some from mum and dad. I can't afford for my family to live outdoors. I'm going to have to pass this on. I never knew what was involved. We've spent loads of money. Maybe we made a mistake, he said, because we had other big clubs in the league. And he's just been honest. But Woking are a tremendous club. They're a iconic non-league club. They're only 15 minutes from us. They're our nearest club, really. I've watched them over the years growing up as a little boy. So I've got loads of time for Woking and the whole setup. One of my good friends was their old manager, Alan Dowson. But they do have, I'll say it again, and their own fans know it, they've got a contingent there that batter people. Douse was top of that National League when he was part-time. Do you remember that, Paul?
Mm-hmm.
They just got promoted part-time. They was top of it, part-time, and they only slid down the league after about 3-4 months, and the fans wanted him out. Unbelievable. So fans have to be careful what they wish for. I do think there's an element of owners that need to control the expectations in clubs as well. I think owners should say, look, this is our objectives. This is where we are. This is what we want. I do think that helps manage the fans' expectations.
But Mark, why do you think owners go into these clubs? You know, we've seen it with the American investment in Dagenham. You know, Hartlepool have had a couple of different owners. Why do these owners go in and think they could be the ones that are going to change the fortunes of the club without spending a lot of money? I mean, Woking obviously went full-time, 3 seasons ago?
Yeah.
You know, that's going to be a burden financially, isn't it? Because all of a sudden you're dishing out 40 to 52-week full-time contracts to 20 to 22 players. You know, why do they think, or why do you think an owner in their head's going, well, I'm going to be the man that makes a difference and I'm not going to spend loads of money doing it?
I know it's so bizarre, isn't it? But like, it is one of the sort of mysteries of the world, because you get it from Premier League down. You get owners that go in that realise once they was there, they made a big error. I think they want it initially because it is a passion purchase, isn't it? It's a vanity purchase. They want to own a football club, and that's fine. It's no different to us wanting to buy a new motor or whatever. But yeah, it's the realization, isn't it, that there seems to be, it almost needs to come like a cigarette box with a health warning, like you know, because that is what it is. You don't realize until you do it. You really don't.
I mean, as an owner yourself, Mark, have you had others come to you, prospective owners, and sort of use you as a sounding board and say, like, what's the score here? What's involved? Or do they go into it that blind, thinking because they've got a load of money and probably got advisors and a business behind and whatever it may be, and go, I don't need to know. You know, it seems bonkers they wouldn't tap into someone like you who've got 15 to 20 years, not just football experience, but business experience, to say what's actually involved.
Yeah, I mean, and I've made a lot of mistakes, and you know, I'm lucky to have a lot of great people around me, and we've now got a big fan ownership group, which I also think is really important in every club now. But yeah, I've had a few over the years, and you know, the only advice you can ever give them is that you are going to lose money. This is the bottom line. You are not going to make money. You are going to lose money, and it will be more than you thought. That is the only thing you can say, because every owner watching this will be nodding, going, yeah, it's a money pit. That's what it is. And the irony is, here's the irony. I'm sure you've done the maths on this before, but like this year, the EFL, the Sky money's trebled due to the new deal. The National League clubs are going to get more money from the Premier League fund, because the Premier League, in fairness, I mean, they are the elite, aren't they? And they do they do fund football down to a level. And I think that money from the Premier League and everything else for the National League has kind of doubled between the clubs. But see, for all the funding and income, you can never win, because if everyone's got more funding, then the players just get richer. The players want more money. Do you know what I mean? So that's the irony.
Just on ownership then, I know, just an example of a club, I know you've got quite a good relationship with this club as well as a number of clubs, to be honest, but those sides that have kind of shot up the leagues like we kind of expected them to do, and of course that's Wrexham. Something that I've always thought, and maybe you can kind of educate me a little bit on this, is when you look at Wrexham, you look at the amount of money that's been pumped into them, do you think that that's going to be sustainable? And if so, how will that be? Let's say when Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney end up, you know, basically moving the club on, and because one day that, of course, that is going to happen.
Yeah, I think they're fortunate at Wrexham, because I think the boys actually really love the club, and I think the last thing, I think whether they're celebrities or whether they are, you know, honest businessmen, I think that if someone loves the club, they'll do right by the club. I think it's fair to say that the man at Southend maybe didn't love the club as much as the boys at Wrexham, because to be frank with Southend, if Kev Mayer was not the manager, I honestly think they wouldn't be a club. I don't know any players that would play for no money, including over Christmas, on the proviso that Kev's saying it's going to be all right. And I'm sure the fans get that. But yeah, no, it's I'm pretty, as long as the owner is passionate about the club. I think the only time it can go really wrong is when the owner comes in, he puts in everything he's got, realizes he ain't got enough, and then obviously pulls the plug and says, sorry, I've got to look after my wife and kids. Do you know what I mean? And and I think that's where, Luke, that the fit and proper tests and having a bond and stuff like that is quite important for football ownership. I don't think it's unreasonable. If someone bought Wealdstone tomorrow, I don't think it's unreasonable to say we need whatever you've agreed with to buy the club is one thing, but we want £500,000 as a bond in the league, and you get it back 20% every year. You get it back as we see the way it's run or something. Do you know what I mean? It's that type of thing that's needed to protect the clubs.
Yeah, it's like a deposit in a way where you put money in and you'll eventually get it back. Yeah, and I totally agree with something like that because it's happening too often. And we're talking about Woking at the moment. They're the club at the moment that everyone's talking about with ownership, but probably next season there'll be another club, and it could be any in the 24 of the National League that could be having financial issues. And Torquay, of course, in your league next season, they've had their issues in the past, and that's something that I do want to come on to. I want to come on to the National League South for Dorking next season. What's the expectation for you? Is it to consolidate? I'm guessing it's not, but consolidate in the division. I have to say it. Finish inside the playoffs, or is it we've got to win the league and get straight back up?
Yeah, I was really annoyed because BBC Surrey, I'd done an interview and I just said,
saw that.
Do you know what I mean? And then they've done some kind of clickbait headline about me saying we've got the best 11 in the league and we won 100 points. And then all the context in the interview was, from my honest point of view, loads of managers will sit there and go, oh, it's a tough league. Loads of great managers, coaches, by the way, which there are. This year, really, playoffs would be the minimum aim, ideally, blah, blah. But I genuinely think we've got the best team in the league. I know this league. We've been in it 3 seasons. We finished 7th without changing a player from step 3 first year. We was winning it by 6 points with 2 games in hand during COVID, having signed about 1 player from step 3. And we was about to win it with sort of 8 weeks to go when we'd done an ACL and a broken collarbone, and we won the playoffs. So we know a little bit about this league. We've never been out of the playoffs. And the team we've got now is by far the best team that the club's ever had. So I'm not going to sit there and play it down. I genuinely think if we get a team on the field that we are great value for being in the top 3 of this league. And I wouldn't want to back anyone else over and above us. That's the bottom line. However, when there's only one up, it takes a lot more than you being the best team. You've got to have a lucky season. That's the bottom line. You really have to. EFL 3 up or 4 up, 4 down is like, you can have half a good season and that's, and you can bounce up. But so we're really confident. But it is for the great clubs, great coaches, great managers. And obviously it's going to be like any other league for the challenges. But if I didn't say I thought we had the best team and the best chance of winning it we've ever had in the 4 years we've been in it, having come 2nd, 1st and 7th, then I'd be lying, and that's not my style. And, that's how it is, really.
Mark, the boys that you've kept on, have they bought into the fact that they have got relegated and they want to do what they can to help the club get back to National League? And there's always a bit of professional pride in any footballer, isn't there? They don't want a relegation on their CV. Yeah, but those that have stayed and those that you've wanted to stay and wanted to stay themselves, can you see in them that they've got that ambition to get bounced straight back up?
You just summed it right up. You couldn't have summed it up better. There's boys there, Charlie Carter, these are top end National League, players, Brennan Camp, you know, Josh Taylor. Rutherford's fully fit now, scored 40 goals, as you know, Paul, in National South. And yeah, no, we've got all the boys didn't want to desert a sinking ship, if you like, you know. And also the club and the supporters, mate. We are investing in this team going very close this year and having a really great season and bouncing straight back. That is the bottom line. The fan ownership group, the board, all of us and the players are all in it together. And you're right, they all bought into that. They're really good lads. They were really pissed off with that relegation.
Of course, Rhys Murphy, he's probably one of the marquee signings when I was looking at the transfer business that you've done so far. What are you to expect from him, bringing him into the side? Because he's someone that's proven himself in the league above, hasn't he, before?
Yeah, well, we obviously wanted to lower the age group, and he's outside of that bracket. But we signed Brennan Camp, 24, Jordan Williams, 23, the keeper, Folks, 23. But my thing was, we're going to have a lot of possession, a lot of last third entries, and we're going to need goal scorers. I mean, I said it earlier. So we are, you know, Pryor, Rutherford, Murphy, all fully fit. McShane in October. Charlie Carter, high goal scoring midfielder. We've got goal scoring wingers. So everything you need to win a league is there. I think Rita contribute to that massively. So yeah, fingers crossed.
I think the big thing with Rhys Murphy, Mark, is keeping him on the field, isn't it? His injury issues. And I know you've mentioned your plastic pitch not being the greatest and it causing some of your issues with the injuries last year. So I suppose that's going to be your biggest challenge with someone like Murphy, isn't it? Just to keep him fit, like you have had to do with some of your other elder statesmen, I guess you would put them in.
Yeah. My thing was, if Murphy and Pryor sort of played 20 odd games each, that works. That was my thinking. I think if Murphy ends up playing Saturday, Tuesday, he won't like this, but he will break down. That is the bottom line. And that's the same for Jason, by the way. You can't escape Father Time and old Father Time. And it's just, So the idea of the Murphy one was to get someone that could be a joint number one, if that makes sense, up top, but doesn't have to play every week, same as the others.
I know that is something that, you know, Dorking have been very unfortunate with in the last couple of years. Like Alfie Rutherford getting injured at the start of last season was a massive loss. You know, he's been prolific and proven himself in this division before. And, you know, I think to have that added backup this season, perhaps in case something like that happens again, is, I think, a sensible decision, isn't it, from yourself? You'd probably agree with that, wouldn't you?
Yeah. McShane done his ACL after 4 games as well. It was just a nightmare, really. We've had 5 ACLs on that shit pitch in 5 years, and about 3 or 4 MCLs. It's not nice, so that's where it is.
But Mark, you have kept count of how many plastic pitches are in the National League South, right?
I know, mate. I know, right? I know. Do you know what it is, though? Do you know what it is? They're all different. And the problem is you've got loads of suppliers all guessing at what a good one is. You only really know what a good one is after a couple of years. I remember Bromley, when they first put it down, it was like Wembley. It was lovely, unbelievable. Played there 3.5 years later. It was like playing on the M25. It was just rock hard. And I remember Worthing had one down back in the day, one of the first ones. A couple of years later, it blew off in the wind, right? Like, our one is like got loads of rubber on top of it. Other ones have a rubber pad underneath it. Yeah. My mates at Horsham, there's like a little tennis court, plays brilliantly, seems all right, but apparently not the highest level. So you couldn't use it our level. They haven't got a clue, really. They have not got a clue what a good artificial pitch is. And I mean not a clue.
But the problem you've also got is maintaining it. I know it's not grass, you haven't got to cut it and all that, but you know, I've been to games National League South level where the pitch doesn't look like it's being brushed and mown as if you like, so it keeps its sort of its thickness, and it just looks like you said, it ends up looking like a road because it's just padded down and no one looks after them.
It all gets bent over, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And like it's rock hard, like almost like a tennis racket strings, just rock hard. But like I honestly think eventually, like if someone brought along an artificial pitch that they said was good for the National League, and they wouldn't even know if it is good, they'd just be guessing at that, right? Like they do now. I honestly think in the end, it could be a case you can get one that's not that dear and get almost one a season. And it's just a carpet that goes on top because they don't last. They don't last. And they are vastly different after 2 years to when they got laid. So, yeah, ours is poor. But when you're in the manufacturer, it's like complaining about a roofing company. And they're going, no. There was 4 slates loose. They start banging the hammer going, putting rubber down like that, going, you needed more rubber for that. No, we fucking didn't. How do you know what we need? They haven't got a clue.
No.
What's the plan like with owning the ground? Because I know we've had you on before and you've mentioned there about wanting to like own it and be able to, kind of improve it in a way, make the away end better, and maybe even I'm guessing you're more of a fan of having a grass pitch than an artificial one, but yeah, what's the plan on that in the future?
Well, I mean, we're buying the stadium. That's the plan. There's local authority involved. We've got our local FA in there as well. So there's all sorts of conversations going on. Takes a lot of time. I know Paul will know from Willstone, like when you're caught up in, one of the things fans never see is the behind the scenes of a club, and it is a minefield. But I think a hybrid like Oldham have got and York have got seem to be the ones that last the sort of, they play well. They can still have community use up to about 35 hours a week, which is half decent when you think about that. 6 till 10, for sort of like 4 days a week, all day Saturday. So, yeah, I think hybrids are the way forward because I think it's good to have the community on the pitch if you've got that luxury.
Just have a look at the live chat then, because I know a lot of people have come in from very early and we haven't got to them yet, but a lot of people have come in with their questions. We've had looking forward to going to Dorking again next season with Maidstone, just hopefully without having my week ruined again this time. Yeah, Maidstone fan there. That could be a question for you. What sides do you see in the National League South being like your biggest competitors?
I think it'd just be the obligatory. I think Hornchurch would be the dark horse because that step 3, step 2 gap is not as distant as 2 to 1. So Hornchurch will bounce and do quite well like we did first season. And then you've got the obligatory ones. I think you've got to look then at the clubs that put 2,000 in there every week because that little home advantage Maidstone have serves them really well. Lots of home wins. Torquay will be the same. Jerry down at Bath will have a good season. He always does. So I think it'd be sort of the obligatory ones, if I'm honest. I think Boreham Wood, they stand out for me. Russ is a great manager. Ross, rather, great manager. And they've kept their squad. They're going about their business quietly, unlike me, who's telling everybody we're going to win the league by 150 points.
Fair enough then. Someone else has come in and someone said opinions on Halifax Town then.
Well, I'm a massive me and Millington, like we talk. Yeah, I just think he's brilliant. I just think what's important is just Halifax fans need to understand like this is run on a fag packet. That's the truth of the matter, right? And maybe they don't know that. Maybe the owners don't really communicate their challenges, but I think the fans have to get involved in clubs if they've got a lot to say. That's my opinion. So yeah, I love Halifax. I think he is operating on a budget that honestly borderline half of the National South would have that same money, and certainly 3/4 of the National North. And he's handpicking players that are doing a job, probably between them and Gateshead to be the sort of niche recruiters in the league, really.
We've just paid a fee for a player, so making, going up in the world in a way. Someone also...
I'm doing a sales pitch for Millington. He just paid for someone.
No, we have actually as well. Quite a good player as well. But no, also, someone actually came and said there were opinions on Ebbsfleet as well. Everyone wants to know like your opinions on their club, by the way.
Well, Damo, who runs Ebbsfleet pretty much. Obviously, we are sparring partners, us and Ebbsfleet, since the famous Flair incident, at the playoff game. But we got a great friendly rivalry. I know one thing: no matter how many relegations we get and how many promotions Ebbsfleet get, that fucking hurts them, that win, right? That still hurts them, and they know it. But you know what? I've got a good friend of mine, Josh Wright, down there. Damien and me get on brilliantly, and they're a great club. One of my best friends used to play for Gravesend and Northfleet, so I used to go and watch them all the time at Stonebridge Road. And I'm just a football fan foremost. I think change of Dennis was so unfortunate. Do you know what caught Dennis out was that that level jump we talked about with Paul a minute ago? Caught him out. He won that league by a cricket score, didn't he? The South didn't change too much, and he couldn't fathom out the differences. And Damien had to act on it, and that was brave, to be fair. And then Danny come in and done a job. So fair play, and they've got a lot going on down there. I mean, I think this season you could get an Ebbsfleet easily out of nowhere, have a good season. I think it's wide open.
I thought last season when they got promoted, I looked at Ebbsfleet and I thought that's a side for me where I think they're going to be able to establish themselves in the division and maybe do, even better than expected when you looked at the squad. And I think they started okay, but they just kind of in the winter period went on a proper bad run. And of course, that's when they changed the manager and managed to turn it around and be able to survive last season. Yeah. Someone's also come in, a Dorking fan, the Dorking drummer. You might know who he is. The club are in the process of buying the freehold of the ground. What is the one thing you are most looking forward to doing with it once the club are the owners of it?
Just making it more of a hub of the community, really, adding in more fan facilities, making sure more people use the place, making it a social sort of epicenter for different reasons beyond football. Really, it's been that ground that you've all been to has been at the centre of Dorking for best part of a century. So it's quite an iconic ground. The church behind it, boxing in the background. And my first ever game was at 5 years old there with my granddad watching Dorking play Cray Wanderers on the worst pitch known to man. I just want to make it the hub of the community.
And then we've also had we've had Jake, I think that is. Does Marc see promotion as a must to keep the top players? For example, Charlie Carter, etc. So with Harrison Mayle not being in the National League was difficult to keep him.
Yeah, I mean, all the boys were amazing. Harrison Mayle, top lad. The minute as the slow decline was happening, in my head I was thinking the only one I wouldn't hold back is Harrison, because he was just at that age where I didn't even want to do a sales job on him. I just felt like, do you know what? He's 20s, he's had a good season, and I wanted him to go on and prove himself. And it was just innocuous that Hinch got the job at York, who's his old manager and near where he's from. I mean, it couldn't have worked out better. So
and you don't like goalies anyway, do you, Mark?
Not really. And obviously, like I don't really at all. And I try to find a fight at every opportunity. Honestly, sometimes I pick on things that I don't even mean because I just dislike them.
Yeah, there's been some funny moments over the years on bunch of amateurs. I must admit, without that's something we need to ask you about. Every time we've had you on, we've talked about officials. What were your thoughts on officials last year? And any particular moments that you didn't like?
Yeah, I mean, just
where does he start?
Yeah. Do you remember the first game of the season? Do you remember their brainwave about timekeeping?
Oh god!
Out of nowhere, Howard Webb stood up at the meeting before the season, and I said, Howard, at the end, I said, is there any questions? He said, yes, Howard. I said, just leave the laws alone, mate. I said, because the laws have been brilliant for like decades for football. Goalie can have 6 seconds, stand in front of a quick free kick, get a booking. Deliberate handball's a penalty. Just the laws have been brilliant for donkey's years. Leave them alone. They're obsessed with changing the laws, aren't they? What about that one last year? We're now going to add time on, right? Even the referees admitted in the National League, they never even got a brief. They just said, yeah, we've got to add loads of time on. So that was like basketball. So the ball, we was 3-2 up at Chesterfield, right? Joe Cook got a second yellow, shock, right? So we had to, in the end, across both halves, we played 23 minutes added time, right? And we lost in the last minute of that, having had 10 men for 30 minutes. And then 2 weeks later, they sacked it off. Just sacked it off.
I know that's.
And the ridiculous thing was, it's in the hottest part of the season. You know, when you're all playing in 30 degrees of heat and having to play 11 minutes injury time. I
phoned the National League afterwards. Great relationship, and I'll be fair to Jack and Marc have turned the league around because it had a few problems, and they were like, yeah, everyone phoned us. We understand. We're putting a complaint in. We know, but they're just honestly, the referees would be helped if they left the laws alone. And the only thing I don't like is referees with no personalities. That's what I don't like. Do you know what I mean? Because you have to have a bit of personality, but the level in general wasn't great. But one of the big things you don't realise from the side, and I'll tell you what's going on this season because it's better, is that the fourth officials like pretty much ref the game. So the fourth officials like wired up like a doorman, or or Domino's driver, I used to call them, right? And he'll just be like, yeah, that's red ball, yellow ball, booking, on put. So I used to say to referees, that fourth official was 3 divisions below the man in the middle. So I'll say to the referee, like, you need to ref the game. That's why you got promoted, not some bloke who's not at your level. And that was going on week after week. Anyway, this year, they're all at the same level because the National League fought that corner. And that's what they're there to do. They might not tell you that. So this year, the fourth officials are going to be at the same level as the man in the middle. And that may make a good difference.
I remember thinking on the first day of the season, when you lost to Chesterfield, I think we'd just beaten Bromley, and I looked at my phone and saw Dorking have lost in the last minute. I thought, blooming heck, I wonder how Marc White's doing and how mental he'll be going at that, because I remember thinking it was stupid, adding that ridiculous amount of times, and I don't think it actually affected us at all, to be honest. We're quite fortunate that it didn't, but as a Halifax fan, but I remember thinking when they introduced it and they were like 10, 15 minutes of added time, it was just absolutely ridiculous.
There was games that ours were 25 minutes across 2 hours. There was games that had more. In the EFL, there was some unbelievable. It'd be like a record forever. I was in a hotel room watching that game. I was suspended for Chesterfield, that first game. And, I said to Dino, the assistant, I phoned him up, how long to go, Dino?
Yeah.
He said, well, he's putting up 17 minutes. I was going fucking mental. I said, can't talk to him, Dino. Ask him to tell you what it's for.
Yeah. You were meant to go as a mascot anyway to that game. That's what you were saying to me.
Yeah, no, I was trying to be, at that point, I was trying to be good. I decided not to break the law or the rules.
Yeah.
At that point.
You'll have to do it this season at some point when you get a red card at some point. Unless
to be fair, apart from kicking the ball away at was it Oldham and getting a red, because I didn't realise that I was kicking it back at the goalie Harrison, who kicked it off, and he kicked it off 3 times. It come to me and I just smashed it and got annoyed. And they said I delayed the restart. I didn't know it was a red card. That was the only red I got. And do you know what? The FA found it funny to the point, and the fair play, they just gave me a couple of £100 fine, not even a ban. Just said, yeah, look, that is a red card, Mark. And I went, all right, sorry. That was that.
Fair enough. Then someone else has come in and said, hi, Mark, what's your favourite all-time Dorking goal?
Oh.
Wow. I know, Paul, exactly that, mate. Well, it's got to be the Luke Moore one, absolutely. It's got to be, just because I've never seen a ground erupt. We come from park football with no supporters. So when that ball went in, and I spoke to the ref afterwards and said, how long was there to go? He said 5 seconds.
Yeah.
5 seconds. There was people up the high street that had left, that come running back down the hill. The whole ground erupted. So just the magnitude of the goal, that's got to be my favourite goal.
Fair enough. That was probably, I'd have to say, the best bunch of amateurs. YouTube video that they've done of all time. You can watch that probably 10 times over. It was that good, and it certainly
Phenomenal.
was an amazing moment, I'm sure, for you
Do you know,
guys.
the best thing about that is, right, the thing that backs up what you're saying is, I've watched it maybe 3 times, right?
Yeah.
And every time I watch it, I still think we're going to fucking lose. Honestly. Right? Do you know what I mean? I watch it thinking, nah, come on. You know, madness. What a day. Put the club on the map to a degree. Weird.
Yeah.
And the irony was, again, you know, we talk about football gods and all that stuff. We were robbed during COVID. We were absolutely robbed. Top of the league. The government had funded football to continue, right? The directors of the National League voted to cancel the division against their own rules, and we proved that. We proved that in law, right? And we were robbed that season. And, you know, that was the season after. So I just always felt like there was a link with that. Someone said, nah, they're going to have a bit of luck here today. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, fair enough then. And we've also had someone come in and said, who do you see as the Dorking's top goal scorer next season? Murphy looks really sharp pre-season, but just hope he can stay relatively fit.
Rutherford has scored the most goals. Yeah.
And then we've also had, I don't know if I should put this one up, but I want to see you respond to this, Mark, to be honest. It's all banter, but Mark gave it large when they beat Chesterfield, said how easy it was, etc. Why could you then not win another game? You are such a brilliant tactician. What's your reaction to that then?
Yeah, my reaction is that I kept defenders playing that couldn't defend, and I should have changed that. That's the bottom line. One was injured, and we should have got a lone boy in instead. And the other guy was a brilliant lad, but having a really bad spell. I didn't change it. It wasn't the tactical part. The tactical part of the game's my thing, really, to be honest. It was really bad decision making on my part, which I can own. But what I would say is it was fucking easy against Chesterfield.
Next question then we've got where do you think Tamworth will finish? I wanted Dorking to stay up.
Well, because he wanted us to stay up, I'm going to say fourth bottom. Someone, I'm not sure. Do you know if Tamworth going to be part-time forward? I think they're part-time, aren't they? Yeah, I think they're part-time because Hayden Hollis has gone there and he's got another job at Chesterfield in the under-23s. So that makes me think they're part-time. So someone said the best way of summing up being part-time in the National League is the best you can hope for is to survive with 3 games to go. That's the summary, really. You can have an innocuous season, we get that. But in general, if you survive with 2-3 games to go, you've had a good year if you're part-time. Hopefully for Tamworth, they do better than that. But no one would be rushing down to Ladbrokes to say that, would they?
Blondie Blues come on, and this you kind of answered this one, but it's hi guys, who are the teams Mark thinks will be promotion rivals to Dorking next season? Can anyone romp the league, or will it be close? Yeah, I think. I mean, I just think it'll be Boreham Wood, Maidstone, Torquay, Bath. You know, us, Worthing. Really disrespectful. I forgot Worthing earlier. Worthing will be in the mix. Great manager, great setup, great club, friends of ours, come through the leagues. It'll be close, but you hope over 46 games you can separate yourself, don't you? That's the thing. Someone's also come in and said, evening all, what's Mark's relationship with Dorking's local clubs like Woking and Aldershot?
I'm a football fan, so I've watched these clubs because we were just a park team that played on a Saturday, about 18 games a year. I'd go and watch all these teams week in, week out. So I've got a lot of time for them. They're iconic local clubs, both of those mentioned. And I never had a rivalry beyond the 90 minutes. And we looked after their fans. And I think all the clubs have got quite a good mutual respect, to be fair. Yeah.
And then we've also had someone's come in, and this is what I mean about everyone wanting their opinions on like the clubs and stuff. They want to hear your opinion on their clubs. But we've had it's Gateshead now. Someone said opinions on Gateshead.
Well, my opinion might be short-sighted, but I wish someone there had hung out their local authority with about 6 months before that.
Yeah.
Because knowing what I know about local authorities, if they had put that in the press 6 months earlier, I think that situation would have resolved itself. I just think bearing in mind it's a hotbed for football. I mean, we're lucky where we are, Dorking. We've got minimum clubs around us. Up there, Sunderland, Newcastle, Middlesbrough, you name it. I think they do an amazing job. Williamson, Mike, done an incredible job. Apart from the multi-ball, which really fucks me off to this day. Right, Sean knows that as well, which makes me laugh. Do you know what that multi-ball thing was?
No.
Yeah. Oh, mate, honestly. Well, the Gateshead fans still get annoyed about it. I'm sure Sean don't. It was the last game of the season. Yeah, sorry. It was near the end of the season. Us Gateshead, right? If Torquay lose, right, and Gateshead and Dorking draw, both Gateshead and Dorking stay up, right? Yeah. Half time, Torquay are 5 down at half time.
Yeah.
And they're still playing multi-ball.
Right.
In my head, I'm just the sort of bloke that would walk over a pensioner to win. So in my head, I'm thinking, right, obviously we're not going to do anything untoward here, but at least stop the multi-ball.
Yeah.
You know? But anyway, I think if you look at how Mike's doing it and how Rob's taken that on as well, it is pretty incredible. They're the best footballing team in the league, bar none. And you can tell great coaching because no matter who they recruit, they fit into the system. Yeah. And the fans up there are really passionate. And every away game is an away game, isn't it? So, you know, you've got to tip your hat to Gateshead. And I'll be honest with you, I thought it was a really poor show that EFL didn't let them play in the playoffs when they had other clubs in their own division with similar challenges. Because in football, for my money, you know, football always has to win the day. It always has to win the day. And everyone always has to say, right, okay, we know it ain't good. We know it might be a little bit anti the latest rule. However, you can't let football down or the supporters. And that was disappointing of the EFL and contradictory to other teams they've got in their setup. Yeah.
Right then, so next question that we've got in here. Do you think York will do better this season as they have brought new players in early? Of course, you'll probably be well aware of a lot of the players that they've recruited, with them coming from the National League South, a lot of the Worthing players. What's your thoughts on York going into this season then?
Well, they'll have, you know, one of the best managers in the league. That's the bottom line. Yeah. He's a great coach, manager. He is one of my good football friends. What's he call him? He's like an enigma. He's like a one-off. He just does it all. Manager, coach. And it's this will all be about Hinch, right? My only reservation will be, you know, getting the recruitment right, because the league is, you know, the league is good. But he's been in the league long enough, Hinch, to know that. But if anyone can get York City in the playoffs, it will be him. I don't remember the last time Hinchelwood, and we get on really well, was outside of the playoffs in any division ever.
Yeah. Fair enough. I think, you know, when you look at York and you look at him, you know, they're a side for me where they've got quite a lot of criticism, haven't they, last season when they've had the takeover. A lot of people might think that maybe that they'd underperformed last season, where this season feels like they've been a little bit more sensible with the managers that they're bringing in. For example, I know you probably might disagree, but what I'm saying is he's not a traditional, well-known manager at National League level yet. Of course, he's still to prove himself. So he's done well in the National League South, but he's not proven himself in the National League yet. So they've kind of gone down that route. And then they've recruited players from the league below rather than going to League One players that are coming towards the end of their careers that are big names, for example. So when I look at
Luke, I actually think you're right. And that's what I was hinting at in terms of the players, because on paper, it's probably not the right way round to do it, right? I'm just sort of backing my mate Hinch probably. But you know what? That was another Matt, the man in charge, Agler. Ugler. He dodged a bullet. Great decision, like Wildstone-esque, really, wasn't it? And correct me if I'm wrong, they went and got thumped at Altrincham. Was it 6? Right?
5-1, I think, yeah.
Yeah, and then I looked at the scores, web pages, and I remember they won their next game. And it was one of those old school, one off the arse in the last minute to win the game. And they never looked back. And that's what football does.
Someone's come in here and said, and this is going to bring on to one of the questions I have about, FA Cup replays. And I've kind of got a feeling what route you're going to go down here. And I think I'm going to agree with it as well. But he's put, will Marc finally get Dorking into the FA Cup first round? Will Big Sam still come down if you get the final qualifying round? But also, as I'm on the topic of that, firstly, then, of course, FA Cup replays, they've been scrapped, haven't they, for this season now, when you're actually in the competition. What's your overall opinions on that, then?
Well, they showed the date of the National League meeting 2 nights ago, and they're saying, well, this is the amount of clubs that ever get, because replays stay up until the first round. So what they're saying is, well, barely anyone ever really gets there, to be honest. I think it's scandalous. It's all because of fixture congestion, and it's really all about the Premier League and their schedules. That's the bottom line. I think it's poor. The consultation on it was horrific, and they would admit that. I think they've now got I think they actually had an FA. This is true. That they've got an FA competitions committee. Right, and they didn't even talk to them. They did not even ask them. This is a fact, and they've now built a wider committee to consult with for next year. Sometimes the FA allow weird decisions, and that was one of them. And it's sad for the football fan. I'd like to think they just reverse it at some point and just say, "Yeah, that was shit. We should have kept that in there."
There's some stupid things that have come in. Like, I don't know what your opinions is on, like, and we've probably spoke about it before, but VAR, blue cards has come in. There's been other things that have been like detrimental as well to the lower leagues and what they're wanting to scrap. I don't.
Oh, you want to see that? You are. This is good for the fans, right? For your people, you want to see the new one this year. It's fucking brilliant, right? Yeah. Encroachment at penalties, right? Yeah. This is the new one this year. They've showed us it the other night, yeah. And I just looked up and said, right, so this only works. Because they bring out laws now that only work for VAR. So now, right, if you've got a hair sticking out on your knee, technically, and you're a defender, right, and the keeper saves the penalty, it'll be retaken. So they've got this massive thing on encroachment this year. You wait till you see it. For the Premier League, it's going to be carnage, right? Yeah. If you remotely have an impact on a penalty being saved or scored because you went in the box, they just take it again. But no, it's my personal preference is only change laws like little, kind of like the opposite of little and often, whatever that might be. You know, like the laws have been brilliant for donkey's years. A lot of the laws they change to compensate for ability. You know, they've got 2 cards. They know what dissent is, they time wasting, a good referee should know how to deal with that. It shouldn't be a yellow card every time, which is what they changed last year. Yeah, it's frustrating. I do think on balance, it all improved last year on balance, but that was only because it was so shit to start with.
Yeah.
Well, I think the problem with, obviously Luke and I, we've all watched a lot of National League games, is a level of consistency across the board from officials. If an official's going to give a decision, give the same decision consistently, whether we agree with it or not that it is a foul. But don't one minute give a foul that you all see as a foul, and obviously when we see you on your bunch of amateur clips, there's very much that feeling is, well, are you going to give it or not? Because you're giving it there, and we don't tend to get that consistency across the board.
Well, there's one of the biggest rule changes last year, which has caused a problem, is that they now allow contact, and they now ask the referees to work out if the contact was strong enough to be deemed a foul. So centre halves are having a field day. If you go and ask any centre forwards out there, like their game's totally changed. A centre forward, back in the day, it was easy, wasn't it? A centre half knew if you were leaning on someone, deemed to push them, you know, contact, you knew it's a foul. Now you can shove, you can hold. They've changed the laws, and it kind of almost generates the inconsistency because it's all ambiguous. It's all open to interpretation.
But are they changing the rules inside the box and outside the box, or is it across the pitch? Because there's so often you see fouls given on the centre circle, on the halfway line, where a centre half shoved the centre forward as they're going for a ball.
Yeah.
It's a foul. Bang, foul straight all day long. Centre forward doesn't know what he's done wrong. In the box, it's a penalty. You know, it's not a foul because it's not deemed, there's not enough contact. It's just ridiculous.
Their rules in the box are that you can literally jump on someone's back, hit him on the head, right? As long as he's not going to win the ball, it ain't a foul, right? So the way they do it is that if the bloke looks like he's going to win the ball and he's being held, then they think that's a foul. But my point always was, well, what happens if he breaks his neck? What happens if there's a second or third phase and he's only just got up? They just change things. They don't need to change. It's that simple. It's that simple. I mean, goal line technology, brilliant. I mean, no one wants a goal disallowed that's over the line. Check your watch, job's done. VAR offside, you know, arguably you can never argue if it's drawn right and the ball left the foot at the right time. Personally, I think they should have a variance with it. Do you never just think that, right? I always think with that. So back in the day, Paul, I'm looking at you because you're as old as me, right? Or, well, you're younger than me probably, but back in the day, the benefit would go with a striker. That was what and it worked for years, right? I just think they can never tell the moment the ball left the bloke's foot on VAR, can they? They can't tell. They can stop it all they want, but they don't actually know if it's left or whatever. I always just think, well, just have like a little variance of like, you know, 10 inches, whatever. But anyway,
I mean, the biggest thing for me with VAR is you're offside because you're trying to gain an advantage on the defender. Okay. Now, how can you be gaining an advantage if your arm's in front of another arm? Because your natural moving forward is to be in that almost slanted forward position to run, where a defender defended against you is going to go the other way. If your feet are now offside or are in front of that defender, you gain an advantage because you are a foot, however big that foot is, in front of them. But if your feet are both at the same point, but I happen to be moving forward, it's not my fault. I don't run straight up. I'm not a wooden fucking character from Toy Story. I
totally agree. For my money, all they need to do is just create some kind of variant that means that none of these ridiculous ones would ever count. You know, so that puts it in the favour of the striker, which is where it's always been. If you're level, you're onside. That's good enough for us. That was always the law.
I mean, I think from the VAR perspective, and Luke will tell you, you know, being on the fan side of football, and you'll see it's certainly benefiting non-league because there's so many people now will come down to National League and beyond and say, "Fuck it, I'm going to go and watch my local team because I can't be doing with that crap." You know, it swings around. I know. I mean, I know you sort of said you lost 7 points over the season, but you know, you may have gained a couple here. And it swings and roundabouts, and just to have that spontaneity, right? Is it offside or not? Someone's made a decision whether it's right or not, and you get on with it, and it adds to it, right? And we get frustrated with officials. I think that's my biggest irony in watching any level of football is officials. But you accept it. But watching the VAR just takes all the soul out of it, and you're just like, well, just go and watch it.
Celebrate a goal, do you? It's like, for example, I don't know if you guys remember, but when England played Netherlands in the Nations League a few years ago, Lingard had scored for us to go 2-1 up. My dad, I wasn't there, but my dad was at that game. Apparently, he went 5 rows down, and then, of course, it were given offside after it all happened. So you can understand. So, like, ever since, like, when you're watching the Premier League, and it was the same in the Euros to a certain extent, you're watching it there, and you're thinking, can I actually celebrate here, or is it going to be given offside?
To Paul's point earlier, the biggest issue with officials is the inconsistency, but the problem is the laws encourage it. That's the problem. They allow one referee will book you for standing in front of a free kick and the other one won't, because they now have the ability. They don't have set rules on it. They now do it in terms of, is he trying to impact play? Is it a crucial time of the game? And I'm just like, Howard, not being funny, mate. Like, as a manager, if my player stood in front of the ball, knowing it was a booking, I'll just tell him to fuck off, right?
Yes.
It worked brilliantly. And you keep changing things that don't need changing, mate. Just leave it.
Just on the topic of like England and stuff, you know, I don't know if you saw, Mark, but the National League put a tweet out saying Mark White for the England managers. Is that something that you'd be interested in if they came calling? Because I'd be all for it, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I think the main reason behind it was just that they thought I'd go in there and represent every football fan in the country and batter the fuckers. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Which I'd love to do, but listen, I mean, what a job. I mean, in our lifetime, right? You're sort of, when you all get older and you're sat there with your grandchildren on your knee, or the grandchildren get older, they'll go, well, this Gareth Southgate, he must have been the best of all time, right? Because look at his record. And you'll be going, well, do you know what? He won the group with 2 goals and 5 points, right? Yeah. He got to the semi-final of a World Cup with the 31 out of 32 for shots on target in open play, and got to the semi-final of a World Cup. Every goal was a set piece, right? But his record was fucking undeniable. And it's just weird, to be quite frank. You could argue maybe having the better players gives you the better moments. But yeah, I'm more than happy. I'll do the job for nothing.
Would you? What Mark, would you?
Mark,
yeah. Go on.
Let's say, what would you be able to unlock that thing that Gareth Southgate couldn't do? You know, Luke and I were in Germany for the week. You know, we went to the knockout games, and there was that whole sense of, if only we had someone else who could unlock. That, I think that's going to be much more difficult than anyone ever imagines, is to do that, to go that next step.
The thing is, right, the thing is, no, if Gareth Southgate will probably have the best record of any England manager in our lifetime. That is the bottom line, right? But football now is a modern coaching game. That is the bottom line. It's changed. You've only got to look around the Football League, the Luke Williams of this world, Mike Williamsons, the Scott Lindsays, you know, and you know, it's the Spain who won it, you know, the coach, and it's a tactical affair now. And if you are not tactically brilliant, you'll struggle. But unlocking it, well, if it came down to making them fearless, I'd have been good at that for sure. To having the best environment ever, I'd have been great at that for sure. I'd have not been afraid. There were some weird decisions, weren't there? Like, you know, like how Palmer never started a game is fucking beyond me. Cole Palmer. Gareth, like this experiment at Trent in centre mid. And then when Gareth said, we've never really replaced Calvin Phillips. And, you know, I'm thinking we got Connor there, Dan's brother, and he got £50 million midfielders on the bench, and he's saying we haven't really fucking got one. We've had to play Trent there, but like a Sunday side. I've got fucking Bob from the Jolly Butchers playing. We ain't got a centre mid.
Yeah.
Didn't take Grealish, £100 million footballer who plays for the best team in the world, who play against low blocks every single week, right? Who obviously obviously you needed a player who could play, who was in his comfort zone against low blocks. Do you know what I mean? And even off the bench, so it was just some weird decision. But I always think, but we're all fucking managers on the sofa. But at the same time, I think I'm right. Do you know what I mean?
When I look in at Gareth Southgate overall, I think you have to say he's been successful, no matter what, because he's done what only the guy who won the World Cup, Ramsey, I believe it was.
Gordon Ramsay.
The only one to get us anywhere near winning it, to be honest. I didn't hear that, by the way, but okay. But no, so like I said, I think overall he's been successful. But what I would say is I think his time has come to an end now. I think he's taken us as far as he can. So I'd probably say it's probably your turn, Mark, to come in. I want to ask you.
I'm happy to do it. All the England fans want is a connection with the team and the manager. That's all the fans want, right? If the team run through brick walls, that's why Euro 96 is so famous, because all of a sudden the players were resonated with the fans. They're in pubs, they're doing dentist chairs, they're scoring winning goals, they're celebrating like it. The manager, Terry Venables, was probably the most left field manager England ever sort of recruited. So, yeah, it'd be interesting to see how Eddie Howe or Potter do, because it will be one of those two.
Yeah. Someone's actually come in and said, does Mark know any of the England players? Now, I'm going to change that question. Who'd be the most? If you do, then tell us who it is. But also, if not, who'd be the most famous person in your phone book? Mine would be you, Mark, by the way.
No, I don't know really. I've got a few friends, but I know a few of the England lads and that. Do you know what I mean? And but listen, they are just everyday lads, aren't they? And if you look at what I like, looking at players like Declan Rice, because or Watkins when he scored the goal, that goal he scored, that was the best moment for me, because he almost skipped off, didn't he? And it was just like, he really gives a fuck about that. Yeah. You know, and there's other players on that side. It's not fair to name them, but I think to myself, I wouldn't fucking pick you if you was the only player available, because you are not a team player in a month of Sundays, right? But yeah, no, there's always a few lads knocking about.
Yeah, fair enough then. Now, I've got a final few more questions here, then of course we'll let you go, Mark, because we've been on for nearly an hour and a half now, and we'll have to do a part 4 as well at some point. But no, someone said chips with gravy or chips with curry sauce then?
None of it. None of that. No, none of it. No. But if I was out drinking in Manchester, I'll probably have fucking all of it. But but you know, in open play, none of it.
Didn't you say yours is like Burger King or something like that? That you said you want.
Love it. I don't understand it. Like, Burger King's on another level, like, to McDonald's in my book. No, you know, obviously, in my opinion, Burger King, double Whopper, cheese and bacon. I think they're called like a double half pound of cheese and bacon. Honestly, you've eaten one, it's unbelievable. You can barely move for a week. It's perfect.
Is that why you offered your lads the Burger King then? In one of the episodes, because you like Burger King, you said, I'll buy you a Burger King. Oh,
we got one. We what do you call it? To be fair, mate, I'm one of those, right? If we win today, right, I'm getting everyone a Burger King.
Yeah.
And if we lose, I'll get everyone a fucking Burger King.
Fair enough then. But next one then, someone came and said, what was the best away day for you last season?
It wasn't Wealdstone.
Nah, Jesus, that's a bad one. That, yeah. No, we had good. We loved Oldham. Had fun there. Loved Hartlepool because we had a good result there, and it's a bit of fun. We stayed in a haunted house, didn't fucking sleep a wink, and got abused so badly. If Richard ever brings out the unedited version of that, it is 90 minutes of me versus Hartlepool. But at the end of it, we was all shaking hands. It was fucking like a rugby match. Don't cheers for that, mate. Yeah, it's only football. But yeah, loved. I think all the sort of iconic, going to the Shea and all the iconic clubs were just. We never quite got over the fact that it was special. To be honest, I think we wanted to, but you can't force something, can you? To us, we were playing in front of nobody and paying £5 to play, and, you know, got a kit from the local pub. So running out at places like Notts County, Wrexham and all that was always just a bit of an eye-opener. I wish we could have come to terms with it maybe better than we did, but I don't think we ever did. Hopefully next time we can normalise it.
I agree with that. And then I think it is the final one then, unless Paul has anything to add afterwards. But the next one was, have you ever considered wearing a bucket hat instead of the hats that you wear at the moment?
Don't suit me. No, don't suit me. No,
You've tried
not
it
at all. No, I did try one once, because I forgot my hat and I had to borrow one and it was a bloody bucket hat. So I didn't like it. So I'm going to stick with these for now. I was thinking about getting the ones with a mullet on the back.
Yeah.
Starting a range of like different mullets off the back.
Yeah.
That's my new thing.
Paul, have you got any more questions then, or?
No, I think we're good, Mark. So thank you very much for your time. It's been fun.
I'll give you
Cheers,
one more then. I've just thought, where do you want Dorking to be in 5 years' time then?
Ooh.
Truth of the matter is, if we was in the National League where we were last year and a sustainable club, I'd be really happy, because I think the most you can hope for is to live within your means and to make sure that the club is settled. Obviously, the minute we all wake up, we want to win everything in sight, but reality says, we want to make sure we've got a club for the future. So that is a boring answer. I'd love to get to Wembley.
Yeah.
I'd love it. I want to be, I don't know, the last manager to get sent off at Wembley. For me, that's a goal. That's borderline a goal. So I'm looking forward to maybe having a chance to do that.
Fair enough then, Mark. We'll be all there. If Dorking get to Wembley, I guarantee you we will travel down and be supported Dorking.
I think a lot of people will. That's what's nice about it. So I appreciate it.
No problem at all. But no, Mark, I appreciate you coming on once again. You've been on Sky Sports, Talk Sport, Under the Cosh, yet you still make time to come on our little podcast. So I really do appreciate you coming on once again.
Keep up the good work, mate. Keep up the good work, yeah.
Cheers.
And for all the National South clubs, yeah, that keep saying, oh, he's fucking underestimating the opposition, Mark White. He thinks they've got the best team. I'm not underestimating you. I just think we've got the best team. Get a fucking grip. See you when we win 3-0.
All right, then, Mark. Thanks once again for coming on, and I'm sure we'll see you this time next year.
Cheers, boys.
Cheers.
Cheers,
See
boys.
ya.